everyone! Recently, I posted my punk Lolita capsule wardrobe video. In that video, as I always do, I said, if there's a capsule you would like to see me try, let me know in the comments. And this time, I received a prompt that absolutely stole my brain. That was a classic Lolita capsule wardrobe with a budget of 700 Australian dollars in plus size, and by plus size, we mean size 18 plus. Whew! For the record, 18 plus, that's me. Clothing sizing, especially in women's clothing, is absolutely stupid, and I can be anywhere from a size 18 to a 22, sometimes even a 24. So this actually kind of was easy for me because I just looked at things and I'm like, would that fit me? That made decision making kind of easy. As for the budget, on the other hand, that was tricky. So, 700 Australian dollars at the time when I did this challenge is approximately 500 US dollars, 425 euros, or 80,000 Japanese yen. Now, to avoid keeping you waiting, short answer, yes, it can be done. I did it. Here it is. But there are a few big things that I need to mention that enabled me to actually complete this capsule with the budget and sizing limitations. First, I didn't factor in shipping costs. Obviously, these would vary, but I would guess that you'd probably be looking at least at another 200 Australian dollars, and I'm going to stop specifying Australian dollars because that's just what the currency is for this video. But yeah, I'd say at a minimum you're probably looking at another $200 for shipping, possibly more, possibly a lot more. Secondly, I did not include a petticoat or any small accessories like, you know, jewellery and stuff like that. Now, I never include those in a digital capsule anyway, but obviously if this was a actual real life scenario for someone, yeah, you would need a petticoat, you probably would want some jewellery. Fortunately, petticoats are common enough to come by, but that's another cost. Maybe you'd be looking at another $100 for a petticoat and having it shipped. And then for jewellery, fortunately for classic, you can get away with a lot of sort of mainstream pieces like thrifted stuff, DIY stuff, so probably not looking at too much dollar-wise there, but that is just another point that if this is a real life capsule for someone, that's something that needs to be considered. Third point is that this should go without saying, but the pricing and the availability was accurate when I started sourcing things for this video. Probably not going to be accurate by the time the video is posted, and definitely not if you're watching this well after the time when I actually post it. And the last point, see the floral skirt in the capsule? No, you do not, because that skirt is a stand-in for make yourself a skirt because main pieces are expensive. I'll get more into that later. So basically, this capsule sort of fits the brief and sort of doesn't, but it really was interesting to put together, interesting and challenging, and I've got a lot to talk about. I wanted to start by talking about how I approached this wardrobe. Normally you see me sort of filtering through Library and everything like that for the digital capsule, but this was very specific about availability now, or at least that's how I interpreted it. It took me a very, very long time to put this together. It wasn't a film-worthy process, so we're just going to talk it through. First thing I did is I went onto Meta's website. You know me, I'm a massive Meta fangirl, says the girl wearing Meta, and I knew that they would have some stuff. I remembered correctly that they did have a fully shirred JSK and headwear set, so I bought that. I also went and found a long-sleeved blouse that was plus size. I went with long sleeve rather than short sleeve because I've been in Lolita for a while. I know from experience you're gonna have a lot better chances finding short sleeve blouses that work for Lolita in sort of off-brand environments, and I was already thinking that I'm probably gonna have to look off-brand for this. Much better chances of finding something suitable that's short sleeve than something suitable that's long sleeve. I also went ahead and got a pair of long socks, actually the ones that I bought myself recently in pink. The review video is up there, but yeah, so got a JSK, head bow, blouse, pair of socks, and that cost $412 of the total budget already. So I've spent half the budget and I don't even have a full coordinate. As I said, I knew I was going to have to go off-brand. Now, At this point, I was starting to doubt that I'd be able to get a second main piece in the wardrobe, so I decided to just focus on completing that first coordinate and getting some options. I poked around a lot of Australian retailers to try and find something suitable until I found the motherlode, Princess Highway. Princess Highway is an Australian brand that does a lot of like vintage and retro stuff, and my goodness, I fell in love with some of their like 60s inspired stuff. But in terms of lolita, I tried to look at their sale items, and I found in the end a short sleeved cream ivory coloured blouse and a nice brown cardigan. There definitely were other options, lots of other options, but I just stopped at the two. Then I went ahead and browsed some of the Taobao resellers. I wasn't particularly optimistic of my chances of finding anything because, yeah, again, this capsule is effectively for me, for my body, and I know that I haven't been able to fit anything from Taobao for quite a while now, so wasn't optimistic, and that lack of optimism was warranted, and in the end all I got from Taobao or a Taobao reseller was just a pair of nice brown shoes. That seems to be a great segue into talking about the price of being plus size in Lolita. The affordable Taobao brands, they generally tap out at about an Australian size 12. Maybe a little larger, but that generally is the upper end. And even at that upper end, you're not going to fit everything. For real world context, a size 12 is incredibly average in Australia. You're not skinny, you're not fat, you're just a person in a regular person's body. Like, for context, here are some pictures of me in Lolita when I was a size 12. Now, I'm not actually complaining about this with the Taobao brands because it makes perfect business sense that a company caters to their primary audience, which in most cases will be domestic customers. So Chinese brands cater towards Chinese people, Japanese brands to Japanese people, and I'm not meaning that in any kind of like racially exclusive way, it's just where you are is where your customers primarily are. And then we encounter the fact that the average Asian lady is going to have a different body to the average Australian lady. It's just what it is. To put that into some numbers, according to some brief Googling, the average Asian lady is 158 centimeters tall and weighs about 55 kilograms. The average Australian woman is 162 centimeters tall and weighs 71 kilos. And me, I'm 167 centimeters tall, and I am not going to tell you what I weigh, but it is definitely noticeably more than either of those. So something that is designed for that first lady, that Asian lady, yeah, if the sizing is winged a bit or they scale up a couple of sizes, yeah, it'll fit the average Australian lady, but it's not going to fit me. And that's not a bad thing, or it's not a good thing either, it's just, it is what it is. I and my body am not the target audience of the vast majority of Lolita brands. Lolita is definitely getting more size inclusive. I mean, look at the simple fact that Meta's plus size and even their plus size line exists. There are more Western brands that cater primarily to Western bodies, and there are a lot of options now that there didn't used to be. There's still not anywhere near as many options, but trust me, it is way better than it used to be. However, the simple reality is there are far fewer options for plus size people with bodies like mine, and that meant for this capsule, it was a lot harder to put together. And that is why I actually don't have any secondhand brand items in this wardrobe. As a general rule, secondhand brand is a great way to build up your Lolita wardrobe, and if I was building a capsule with budget requirements, you can bet I would be on Closet Child snapping up every cheap thing I could, but for this capsule, with having a size restriction on it, I couldn't do that. But what I could do is get all the accessories that way. With the exception of the red socks, which were from eBay, every other accessory item in this wardrobe came from Closet Child. They are actually all from M Petite by Misako, Misako Aoki's Lolita brand. I'm not quite sure how to get that stuff new, to be honest, but Closet Child has heaps of it, and these are cheap, plentiful items that perfectly suit the Lolita aesthetic and are just absolutely, I 10 out of 10 recommend them. Like, genuinely, next time I buy anything from Shop Closet Child, I'm going to be throwing in a bunch of the accessories that I included here, or equivalent things, because I genuinely really like them. Other Japanese brands like Axis Femme and Chalmier, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that one, what used to be Axis Femme Kawaii, they're also available very plentifully on Closet Child and other secondhand retailers, and I think they are great for, well, Lolita in general, but they were absolute lifesavers for this capsule. While I'm talking about the accessories of this capsule, I do want to mention the little fur collar. Now that's something that's kind of an optional extra, you could say, for the capsule. It's not really necessary, it doesn't complete the coordinates in the same way as, like, you know, a head bow does, but I thought it was really cute, and I think things like that, if you can get them cheaply, and in this case it was $6, I think, they can really spice up a coordinate, and that is something that I think is very important when building a capsule, is that you have some pieces that can give variety and interest without being a whole new dress, for example. After choosing all the accessory items, the capsule was by and large complete. So it's time for us to talk about that final piece, the skirt that isn't. By this point, I'd spent $664.50 of the $700 budget, which left us with $35.50. Now, technically, the capsule could be complete at this point. You can basically, with the outerwear and the blouse options, you can wear the JSK in sort of 3 primary outfits, if you know what I mean. Once with each blouse, once with the cardigan, and then you've got variations depending on what you do with the accessories. Technically, it's a capsule. Technically, it works. As a person who lived for a while with that kind of capsule, it kind of sucks. In my opinion, for it to really be a capsule wardrobe and not just an outfit with variations, you need to have at least 2 main pieces. So, enter DIY. I actually decided fairly early on in the process that making a skirt was going to be part of this capsule. I don't remember where, and it made for a much more dramatic video to sort of talk about it at the end, but I knew that there was no way feasibly to make this budget work and to have more than 1 main piece, and I did want more than 1 main piece. So yeah, the way to complete this capsule wardrobe is to sew a skirt. Now I can almost hear you saying, on the other side of the vastness of the internet, Roli, I can't sew. Roli, there's no fabric stores near me. Roli, I don't have a sewing machine. And I hear you. Those are all very valid points that I am going to prove wrong. You can do this. You don't have a sewing machine? Well, people have been sewing for way longer than we have had sewing machines. Is it time consuming? Definitely. Is it possible? Also definitely. And for most of us, you probably do have a sewing machine in your orbit somewhere, you just need to find it. For example, some libraries have equipment that you can loan out as well as books. You may be able to get a sewing machine there. If you're in an urban area, there is probably a sewing group of some kind around, and it's probably populated by delightful little old ladies who would be so excited to help you sew your first skirt. You might not even touch the machine yourself, they might end up doing it for you. You potentially have a friend or family member who has a sewing machine. They're comparatively cheap these days, so it's fairly common for people to have them even if they don't sew a lot. So you can ask around, see if someone has one. I've also seen sewing machines in op shops for quite cheap. Obviously, you know, these are variable things. I'm not saying that everyone can definitely access a sewing machine, but yeah, hand sewing is always an option, and a machine is quite likely well within your grasp. You can't sew? Fair enough, everyone's got to start somewhere, but let me tell you, sewing can actually be really straightforward, especially for a project like a basic Lolita skirt. A simple, fully elastic skirt, even if it's got like a ruffle and some lace and stuff, it's just a bunch of rectangles. It's just a bunch of straight lines. There is none of the confusing maths and curves and anything like that. It is as simple as you can get in terms of sewing. In the description of this video, I will link to a few tutorials to make, not the exact style of skirt that I have included as a sample in the wardrobe, but to make basic Lolita skirts. I'm actually working on a tutorial myself. It'll be out eventually to make a skirt that is more like the style of the one that I have included as an example in the capsule wardrobe. I'm not just talking out my ass about this. One of my favourite Lolita skirts is one that I made myself. It is this little cherry skirt, and this is just very much, it is a rectangle. You can see when it's stretched out. Like this, it looks like a skirt. La-da-da-da-da, skirt. You pull out the elastic, doink. Can you see the fact that it is literally a giant rectangle? It's so simple, and this skirt, yeah, it's not classic Lolita, and it's not gonna like win any awards or be the most amazing thing, but I have worn this thing for years, and it is a great staple of my Lolita wardrobe. Sourcing fabric is the only concern that I consider kind of legitimate about sewing a skirt like this, because yeah, you do have to choose the right fabric and the right trims to make sure that the skirt looks suitably Lolita. My cherry skirt that I just showed you, look, it's a little borderline because it is shiny, shiny satin. I mean, I make it work, I think it's fine, but it's not the most conventional choice. A lot of the time, mainstream fabrics aren't particularly suitable for Lolita. However, plain colours exist, and you can find good things if you just spend a little time and a little effort looking at things and thinking about it. Here in Australia, our major fabric retailer is Spotlight. That tutorial I mentioned earlier, I will flash up the stock image of the fabric that I bought from Spotlight that I'm going to make that skirt out of. It's going to be fine. It's, you know, maybe not as amazing as some of the florals that an actual Lolita brand would produce, but it is certainly good enough. Also, because this is classic Lolita we're talking about, you have access to like one of the greatest sewing hacks, which is secondhand bed sheets. So many beautiful floral bed sheets exist out there in op shops for a couple of bucks. You get plenty of fabric, and there are a lot of really cute florals out there. And obviously florals, classic, match made in heaven. As I said, the choice of materials does matter quite a lot in DIY Lolita. It can be the thing that separates hideous and tacky from delightful and gorgeous, can often be not in the terms of the actual construction, but in just the choice of what materials are used. So if you're in doubt, get onto like the Lolita Reddit, one of the advice groups on Facebook. I'm pretty sure there's Discord servers, and heck, if you've got no one else, drop a comment, ask me, I can let you know if I think your fabric choices are any good. But yeah, you will be able to source fabric, you will be able to source a machine or a needle and thread to sew it, and you, I believe in you, have the ability to sew a basic skirt. Gonna get off my high horse for a second, but to basically summarize, I do believe it is realistically within the capabilities of the vast majority of people to be able to make a simple Lolita skirt, most likely for that remaining budget of $35.50. And with that talking out of the way, and with a meta skirt standing in for the beautiful skirt that the, you know, hypothetical capsule owner would make for themselves, we have a completed capsule wardrobe. Since I was focused on finding items that were available and size appropriate, I couldn't do my usual thing of picking things kind of based off how nice their stock images are, so I can't do my normal outfit collages as well as I normally do, but I have still put together sample coordinates for each of the main pieces. Actually over the moon with how well this capsule turned out. Even if we're going to be completely honest and say that it's realistically a $1,000 wardrobe, not a $700 wardrobe, if you did actually buy it and want to be able to wear it with a petticoat and all of that, it's still a very decent capsule wardrobe for a very affordable price. If you were someone coming into Lolita, I think that's pretty darn good, if I'm going to be honest. And it's also a solid starting point to continue building a wardrobe on. Like, you know, if this hypothetical was real, I'd probably like, you know, maybe buy another blouse in a different colour, make another skirt, get some more socks, because I love socks, but, you know, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So a huge thank you to Elysium1616 for suggesting this prompt. As I said, it really absolutely just stole my brain and I had to start working on it immediately, which is not something that happens normally, by the way. I still am so open to suggestions for capsule wardrobes. I really enjoy doing this type of video, but just, yes, bear in mind that unless your suggestion steals my attention in the same kind of way, it's probably gonna not come out as quickly as this one did. Anyway, I had so much fun doing this. It was a great sort of thought experiment and I enjoyed working within the constraints that I was given. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and until next time, bye bye!